We are opening. Can I get a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
To Mike. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now that we've opened, we are opened into the Hendrick Hudson Board of Ed meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, March 9th. Can we please have the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you can see, we're working with a skeleton crew. We have a lot of people who are ill or otherwise occupied. So, but we do have a quorum, so we will begin. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any items that anybody would like pulled from the agenda? Nope. Then, can I get a motion to approve the items within the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Charles, you're way ahead of me. Okay, so items. There we go. Here, we started. The item pulled off the consent agenda was a donation from from VV Target. It was a contribution of the amount of $131.64, and that's the program that Target does to it's a percentage of their sales, and you apply. So I'd say thank you to Target, but thank you for whoever did the paperwork to accomplish this, and thank you for, I guess, shopping at Target. Can I get a motion to approve this donation?
Did you listen to her second donation?
No, that was pulled until the next meeting because the people from the departments in the donation are going to come to the next meeting.
Can I get a motion to approve this donation? Second? All in favor? That brings us to audience comments. Okay. That brings us to the superintendent's report, which is not going to happen because our superintendent has been filled with illness.
We should share some good news about the Destination Imagination team. So it was great to see people who were competing. And I was, I don't know, being a team leader years ago. It was great to see good news in the district.
That is wonderful.
Yes.
Going to state.
Going to
Yes,
stay,
they are.
exactly, yeah.
Team
Very
going.
cool.
Be interesting to see, maybe after they do it, they can tell us what their project, do a presentation. We can see what their project is. That would be great.
Good for other
mention that
kids
to
to see it.
maybe we can mention that to Margaret, if you would, John Owens.
Yep.
and He can
Absolutely.
make whatever
It's great.
arrangements.
It's a lot of work for all the students and the team leaders. And
Yes. So I'd like to, see what they did and acknowledge these kids
And the parents.
for doing all this work.
Right.
All right.
It's nice to see that Josh Diamond, who is a trustee in Croton, came and helped in one part of the presentation.
Well, he can come too. That would be great to thank him as well. That brings us to committee reports. There's Finance Committee, but again, that will be presented within the budget. Charles, I know you had a read discussion.
I have a document from Reed that I'll pass out and we can discuss at the next meeting. Reed has prepared a letter to be sent to legislators and the governor about different parts of the tax cap levy. In essence, we're saying the tax cap is a given, but there are things about it that aren't working correctly and have some unintended consequences, such as a negative tax levy cap for some districts now, unprecedented amount. For instance, an unintended consequence would be better off
Going to contingency.
going to contingency, and
If
that's
it
not
weren't
a
for the
good thing for
limitations.
people for a district to say we'd be better off by having our voters vote down our budget and go to contingency. So there's several things like that. I'm going to pass the letter to the board. If you have comments, they're going to meet on the 31st to revise and complete it. But if you have comments, send them to them and we'll get them back on the 21st or at our next meeting. For y'all. And
Thank you,
one for
Charles.
Enrique.
Thank you. All right. So then,
we did have I'll just interject with committee reports. We had a policy committee meeting on March 3rd which was very productive. We don't have policies tonight because we have a lot of policies in the works that we're reviewing. We have the Obamacare Affordable Care Act policy that we're going to get feedback from other districts in Enrique and get feedback from what our mandates are. And then our gifted and talented policy, we're going to wait for the committee to review it and decide what criteria they come up with. We had some other policies that Dr. Sverdlov is working on to give some feedback on, some tech policies, instructional policies, 504 appeals. There's a lot. We're going to be working on a special education plan, not the policy committee, but something that the district is working on. So there's a lot in the works.
Good. That's, right now I think everybody's so focused on the budget, but it's nice to see that the rest of it's, not falling by the wayside. So thank you. Any others? All right, then that brings us to our first presentation, which would be the school calendar. Margaret, it's not been finished, but Margaret, you had been
Yes,
working on it.
Matthew and I will try to explain this draft. So this is the latest version of the calendar that we have for you to look at this evening. As you can, you really can't see without looking closely, but school would open for teachers on Friday, September 2nd, which would be their superintendent's conference day, the usual coming back to the district. There would be some building level meetings, teachers meeting with their departments and prepping. Students would arrive on Tuesday, September 6th. And then you can see in the subsequent months, the shaded days are holidays. The Jewish holidays fall almost next to each other and alongside Columbus Day in October. So there would be 2 consecutive long weekends in October to address those holidays. At this time, on this draft of the calendar, you see October 11th shaded as though there is no school because we have chosen to mark it as a superintendent's conference day for now. That is still one of the options that we're debating because, of course, we have to get to a certain number of days. In November, you see the typical election, which for us is a parent conference day, Veterans Day on Friday the 11th, the Thanksgiving holiday. The day preceding that is usually a half-day attendance for students with superintendent's conference day and professional activities for teachers in the afternoon. There's the Christmas week shaded, just 1 week this year with the Monday holiday holdover for New Year's Day in January, Martin Luther King, and then we have the full week in February. Nothing in March, a long, lonely month March is.
Hopefully there's no snow. That's going to be
Oh,
depressing.
No. And then we move into April. And in the calendar for next year, October and April share the same week. October 10th, I believe, is the first night of Passover. Thursday and Friday being Holy Thursday and Good Friday on the Christian calendar, so that week is slated as a week off. The following half day that you see on the 21st is parent conferences for the K-5 division. Then we go to Memorial Day, which will only be Memorial Day Monday as a holiday, no extension of that, so that we could get the 3 full weeks in at Christmas, February, and spring break. Then we go to June, which also is the end of the year, so there is just that the last day is, I guess, a turnaround day for us and a rating day for the turnaround day for K-5 and a rating day at 6/12. So that is where we stand. Looking at what you see, we need one more teacher day, and though that is where the conversation sits right now between district and HHEA.
Well, there was a discussion about approving it. At this point, I don't see that. I'm sure there's been hours and hours and hours in this. We can approve it at this point with the expectation
right.
the expectation that this 185th table will be adjusted.
One of the things that is not marked on the calendar that we had talked about in earlier meetings is the district's desire to create 5 release days where kids would go home. The moment we're thinking kids would go home after lunch, so some point 12-ish, 1-ish, we're trying to still work that out on a number of fronts. And then the teachers would remain and have professional development, which would likely extend into perhaps a grade level meeting or a faculty meeting, so it will become a longer period of time.
I
we're
understand.
hoping that that would happen every other month.
Yeah, I know that the biggest concern, and Dr. Abraham Carroll was the one who brought it most to our
Right.
attention, because she's got the youngest children, is what a, that's a huge, it's a huge imposition. It's very difficult for the parents to try and, arrange for that daycare and that supervision. So whatever notice that we can, as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Absolutely. Well, once we have the approval, then we'll sit together collaboratively and try to plot where it makes the most sense for those days to fall. And we've really tried, I think, to be cognizant of the fact that it does impact families, and how can we work with the community to make it as least burdensome as possible, and yet still give teachers the time for the professional learning that they need.
All right, so
I just have one other question.
So can you go to October, Greg? Sure. So I just want to be clear, the sticking point right now is October 11th.
Yeah.
The HHEA's position is that should be the next teacher attendance day, not September 1st, which is what we would like to do.
Oh, that would make more sense.
Because in reality, October 11th, attendance is going to be
Horrible.
really bad. And if we try to make that a professional development day, we're concerned that we won't have full.
I'm not sure what you're suggesting. You're saying
Suggested September 1st,
Well,
have teachers come in on Thursday.
That's the option that we presented. That
So they'd
they
rather
would not
have them
accept.
come in on. They'd rather come in on the 1st.
No, they'd rather come in on
No,
the
they'd rather
11th.
come in
They'd
on
rather
Friday,
come in.
say they're coming in.
and then come in on the 11th.
No, that's okay. That's
They'd rather
something that needs
schedule
to be
it on the
discussed.
11th.
But
But if they're off on the 10th and the 12th,
Right.
what they're saying is chances are attendance will not be.
no, I understand that, and the teachers are suggesting that they would come in the 11th. I think they'll regret that. decision.
HHEA leadership is saying we have one more teacher day we need. It should be October 11th.
I think
That's
we
their
can-
position.
Okay, so noted. I think right now we can take this as a draft.
I just have one other question.
yes.
Quickly. How many snow days are built in for next year?
Well, with 182 student days, you have 2 automatically, and then there are 3 fallbacks that, should we have an horrific winter next year, what is
I mean,
it,
'cause
El
this year
Nino,
we
La
were
Nina, whatever it is
blessed,
that
yeah.
comes our way alternatively,
Snow.
it would impact, it would definitely eat into the spring break.
Okay.
The April break.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I applaud the movement of the summer learning labs in August. How's that going to work with kids in the high school who are playing sports? They start sports. When do they start sports in August?
The high school summer school has not been adjusted because
what
they
days?
bleed into Regents Week.
There's nothing you can do about high school.
Okay, so this is just for the elementary.
Just elementary, so
And the
they're
reason to move it to this point is to.
closer to start of school. We're hoping we have stronger instructional impact.
Okay.
It's K to 8, correct? Not just elementary.
It will be pre-K at BV, which has always been in that August stretch that we're now aligning with the camp we do, the camp. I don't want to say camp, because it's not a camp, the program that we do with Frank G. Lindsay. So the summer program that Frank G. will run the same period as the kinder camp, and we are including Blue Mountain students. We're talking with John and his team about what we'd like that to look like and whether or not it will be held at Frank G. or Blue Mountain. So, but it will be the same time period, 8/1 to 8/18, Monday to Thursday.
Can we put the date for the high school?
Yeah, we
On the
only
calendar.
have the Frank G. program. I'll find out from Jim what the dates are for the high
Just
school.
because there's always some question for some parents.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Is there an urgency to approving it, since it is only in draft form? I mean,
Well, I
we don't really have, I mean, it might be better, we don't have the full board here.
No, I
Yeah.
understand that. That's why I'm saying it would only be in draft form. Just that this is a good, a solid foundation, but and there is a recognition that there is still some adjustments will be made, and then we'll approve that hopefully next 2 weeks from now when everybody's healthy again.
But for parents, there's no difference.
No,
Well, there
it's not
will
going
be-
to impact the parents.
No, For parents,
early
there's no
release
diff,
The start for students should not be impacted in any way, in any of the conversations we've had. We're not talking about moving the
It's not
6th.
going to
And
change.
the 11th won't affect parents either, because they're already out of school anyway.
Right, the
That's
suggestion
assuming-
is that the 11th would be a superintendent's conference day, not an
If it's a
instructional day.
Right, if it's a
Assuming there's no third option.
That's true.
Right now, there's only two options, and neither of them affect students.
So this is a good starting point, and we'll look at it again in 2 weeks.
And we like community input on this, because especially on the early release days, and, we understand the administration will, to the extent possible, keep the students in school, but it's not always possible.
Correct. And that's part of the reason. That's not necessarily in there yet. That'll be later.
So we'll work at plotting them in so
Yes.
that we can talk about whether or not,
Get a
And
sense
parents
of
are-
where they sit.
Like, we do this. In my district, we do this. We have early release, and the parents know 6 months ahead, so
No, there is
there's
adequate
planning time. They have
Correct.
plenty of planning time.
But there's still no denying the fact that it causes problems. And, it's a production. I remember.
we'd all like
know
to have
about it.
students in school as much as we possibly can, but
Right. Well, thank you.
trying to find a good middle ground.
We'll anxiously
Okay.
await 2 weeks from now. Thank you. That brings us to the Hendrick Hudson Library budget presentation, where we have Mrs. Davis and, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Michelle Keith.
Michelle Keefe.
Hi, I'm Michelle Keefe, President of the Board of Trustees for the Hendrick Hudson Free Library. And I'm here tonight with Library Director Jill Davis and also our Board Secretary Cindy Neff. I'm here tonight to present the proposed library budget for the fiscal year 2016 to 2017 and request that it be included as a proposal on the ballot presented to the public on May 17, 2016. The library's proposed budget reflects a 0.12% increase from last year's budget levy, or an increase of $983. This increase complies with the applicable legislative budget caps. We are pleased to report under our proposed budget there will not be a reduction in library services for the upcoming fiscal year. The average taxpayer in the town of Cortland will see an annual decrease of 4 cents per thousand of assessed value, and Peekskill taxpayers will see an annual increase of 38 cents per thousand. So as you can see, it's a very nice budget to present to the public. Thank you for the opportunity, and we appreciate the opportunity to be on the budget ballot on the vote on May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, our question at hand is whether or not we allow this on our budget. And the budget that's yours, and whether we would put it on the ballot when we vote in May. We've always done this before, and I think it's terrific that we can do this. It's save that money for everybody. So if I can get a motion to approve putting this budget on our voting at the same time.
Absolutely.
Second? All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you for all the work you do for our students and for the community.
I had that conversation with All right, so that brings us to our 16-17 K-12 program budget presentation. And that would be Margaret and Matthew.
Are we moving over?
I'm going to get the remote.
Oh.
You can stand if you wish. First,
So we each have our own.
I think so. See if that works.
No, thank you. Yours works.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Bye.
Yours work?
Of course, his work.
Just put it down for now.
Just put it down.
And click.
I can, wait, well, was that you or me?
That was you.
Okay, so as you can see, we're going to tag team these presentations. Let's see if we have our cues down right. So we are going to talk a little bit at first about the goals that we have for 16-17. And Matthew has these flying in. I'm going to fly them in by category. So in terms of academic excellence, we are looking to maintain the existing programs and services that we have for our students. mitigating opportunities that we may have to reinstate past reductions that directly impact teaching and learning, and expand course offerings and programs based on student interest and need. In professional learning and support, we have the opportunity, we believe, to strengthen and diversify professional learning opportunities for all of our staff, K-12, to focus on building instructional leadership capacity among teachers. We also feel that this budget, in terms of fiscal responsibility, affects personnel reductions via attrition, stays within the tax cap calculation, and maximizes staffing through scheduling efficiencies. Considering long-term, it also considers the long-term implications of any additions to the budget. Matthew, I'm just going to keep going unless you jump in.
I'm taking on number 5.
Celebrating our successes this past year, district-wide, we took on the beginnings of a curriculum mapping process, K-12. We talked a little bit at several meetings about the importance of having an articulated curriculum that is aligned to the standards and provides our students with rigorous educational experiences. There's a lot of research about the efficacy of having a written established curriculum. We looked at establishing systems and protocols in curriculum instruction and assessment district-wide additionally, putting things in place that we could rely on from year to year, that we could go back to and review and edit as necessary as we move forward. Leadership teams to carry the work forward at the school level. This summer we worked with the 3 elementary schools to build leadership teams that represented really all stakeholders in the building. Their job is to bring instructional practice to the classroom level, to make sure that we're moving that forward in alignment with the curriculum work that we're doing and any new programs or requirements that we're needing to meet for state reasons, Fed reasons. Focus on focus on social and emotional needs, support, and awareness. Lots of conversations, and I think Lynn spoke eloquently to that in her presentation about the emphasis that we're placing with your direction and your support on the social and emotional needs of our students. We know how impactful that is to learning anything. Setting priorities for human resource functions, roles and responsibilities. Again, as Matthew moved into the new position, looking at a systems approach and creating procedures that could be sustained and applied across the board. Mobile Learning Initiative and professional learning. I don't know, Matthew, jump in about the Mobile Learning Initiative.
So we're kind of taking the mobile learning work that we've done in the past 2 years and looking at new ways to expand that, and it's related to strategic planning. We have action research happening. We actually just met today where 6 teams researched different mobile learning opportunities and initiatives in different districts, and we're going to be doing some piloting this spring with different ideas.
Obviously, lots of conversation around the professional learning this year. We've really tried hard to infuse whatever opportunity we had with teachers with opportunities for professional learning, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far. Instructional Technology Coaching Program. I will defer again.
As you know, we've spent a lot of effort in cultivating our 13 technology coaches, and they continue to be a key part of the professional learning around the use of instructional technology.
Google Teacher Certification for Instructional Technology Coaches.
So this is something that the coaches have been asking for a while, and I have not been able to get it orchestrated, and finally I found a way to do it. We have 11 or 12 of the coaches that are going to be certified Google educators by May. And what that means is it gives them, in addition to the credentials, it gives them sort of the next level of training and the ability to then do turnkey training to get even more of our own teachers that same certification. So we're, again, investing in this in-house staff and in-house expertise.
So just to interrupt, that doesn't mean teach them how to use Google, but it means, what does it mean to be a Google educator?
It means
and how important is that?
It's a 2-day process, and then there's tests you have to take to be certified. And it means that you're essentially certified in the use of the Google suite of tools in the instructional environment.
And the Google Suite of tools for all.
Yes.
The Google Suite of tools.
Google Apps, Google Sheets, Google Slides,
Classroom.
Google Maps, Google Classroom, YouTube. So Google has a whole suite of educational tools that many, many schools are using now, and we're using more and more. And this is a sort of a professional credential around using those tools in the classroom.
And then do they teach them to the other teachers?
Yes,
that are in
that's the
school?
plan. So
Okay.
we'll get the first 10 certified
Right. And then they
this
will
year,
turn
and then
key?
next year they will turn key, and
Okay.
we have a lot of teachers that are interested in it. And a lot of them have, I would say, there's level 1 and level 2. These people can all be level 2. A lot of our people are probably test out at level 1 already. So the idea is to get them, that extra credential.
Professional development and social emotional awareness, progress monitoring, and transition activities and services. I know Lynn's not presenting tonight, but I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about that.
So the professional development is ongoing in the social emotional awareness arena, both in district through bringing people in and also going out to BOCES and getting professional development for our guidance counselors, psychologists, and social workers. We've done a lot of work in the special education department in the area of progress monitoring and also transition. We've worked with our special ed teachers to really look at their goals this year and align them to the standards and to make them more standards based and to really raise that expectations for students and their learning. So lots of work in that area and continued work into the summer and next year.
Actually, one of the most exciting things that I saw when we were in technology learning team one day, brainstorming about possible classes for next year for professional development. Teachers were asking for courses in how to be socially and emotionally aware, how to teach kids those skills, and so that was interesting.
So currently, in May, we're having a team of people go to BOCES to get involved again with that Steps A curriculum. They'll learn it first, but then we'll bring it to the teachers as well. Again, we don't want to overwhelm our teachers, but we do want to give them some tools so that they can use in the classroom.
Can I add a little something to that? So I've been involved in a sort of a ground-up effort at BV, but it will eventually, hopefully, be district-wide. Heather Wynn, our psychologist at BV, has been working with Josh Cohn and some of the teachers in developing. We looked at software to do RTI tracking and found it lacking. And so we're developing a custom tab for Infinite Campus that will enable teachers to do that, and it'll be exactly the way we want it that works for us. They're going to pilot it at BV, we'll fine-tune it, and then hopefully it'll roll out to the rest of the
That's excellent.
And I think actually Lynn talked a little bit about the secondary counseling program, and you want to tack anything on to that?
Just bringing forward to the board the awareness that while we're behind the scenes creating documents so that they'll come before you, so that you're supposed to have a comprehensive secondary guidance plan, and we have been meeting with BOCES and the counselors have been going to sessions, and we've been meeting in small groups, and also we have another meeting on the 21st to develop the guidance document, to have it come before the Board of Education and have it posted on our website and updated annually.
So we're supposed to have, we haven't had.
We do have a guidance plan, but last year there was a definite call, and even right now in public comment, there was a change in regulations and making sure that you have it on your website, and that again, tying everything back to the standards and a mindset and kind of a framework for when you're talking and interacting with kids and how you're going to bring your guidance program to be much more transparent in the activities that counselors do with students and families.
And the last item on district-wide reflection is Matthew.
So I think I'd mentioned this previously. Data. We always talk about data and how to make it easily accessible, which it is seemingly never easily accessible. We're in the process also with Infinite Campus of integrating a product called Data Visualization, which will enable us to create sort of dashboards for teachers and administrators where it'll create live queries of our data and give us indicators where there's students or programs that we need to pay attention to.
You gave us an example of that
Right.
in your presentation. Remember that where
Yeah.
color-coded?
Yep, that's exactly what
That was
we're
the very
aiming
crude
for.
version of it.
Mhm.
This tool produces much more visually appealing charts and graphs, and it's all drag and drop kind of interface.
So moving on now to the elementary level, here are some of the successes that we've had this year. Bringing in reading diagnostics to help us target interventions, so teachers are increasingly using the information from iReady, AimsWeb, and this year the implementation of the Ponte Centinel benchmark assessment, which looks at live reading of continuous text. And that has made, I think, helped us make good strides in identifying the children who require support and then taking it a step further and figuring out exactly what the students need from us in that support. Increasing the use of data, again, that's tied to that top statement. Revised report cards, which went out in February. That really was a project Matthew spearheaded with a group of K-5 folks all last year and over the summer to better align our reporting feature to learning standards and make them parent-friendly. And then the beginning of the RTI data analysis tools in Campus, which Matthew spoke to a few minutes ago, the ability for us to really customize a reporting feature that will allow us to track the needs of our students throughout the district. So we have access to this historically. If the child starts with us in kindergarten, as the child moves forward, those records remain and are built. And there's a great advantage in that instead of trying to figure out where the paper is or having conversations with people. So it's important for us to put it in place that way. And I'm assuming we'll link directly into the RTI plan that I know Lynn is crafting. The middle school, reading diagnostics to target interventions. So they started to use iReady for ELA at the middle school this year. We're working with them to continue to deepen the understanding of what they're getting in terms of their reports and how they bring that to their classroom instruction. The use of the team model to support students academically, socially, and emotionally. That's an important aspect of the middle school program, the way that it's established. Revised report cards to provide college and career readiness feedback. So this year, I'm not sure exactly how many features they're reporting on, but the conversation started last summer about the ability for teachers to report both to students and to parents about really we used to call them habits of mind, about persistence and grit, perseverance. And so I'm not sure which two they picked up for this year off the top of my head, but they're beginning to give that feedback to both the students and obviously to parents who can then help the students turn some behaviors around if that's what needs to be, or celebrate their success and behaviors that we're recognizing. At the high school, we have the implementation of the 9th grade humanities program to support that transition, which has gone extremely well this year. The expansion of our STEM offerings and dual credit courses. Great presentation for the PLTW piece a few weeks back. Continued growth in advanced placement enrollment and performance within. And the increased participation in athletics, drama, music, and extracurricular activities. And I think the high school has seen so much growth this year. So, okay.
Okay, so I'll take you through the next 10 slides or so on data as far as enrollment, staffing, and student projected enrollment. So this is the historical enrollment for 2006 through 2010, and you can see a clear trend there. And then historical enrollment 2011 through the current school year, each year declining a little bit.
Also increased it.
Right, this
Yeah,
year it's
last year we
increased
had
in
a-
the global.
6, 12, yeah.
23, 44.
Yeah, last year increased and this
Yeah,
year.
42.
Yeah. Because we did
That's
have to add
increased.
teachers because
Right.
of increased enrollment.
Right. So these are the historical class size guidelines. You could see that in 2007 and 2008 there were changes. In the 2009, 2010 school year, they were sort of solidified, and that's where we've been since then.
Do we have any clear data that shows the class size guidelines and improved achievement.
Empirical data.
And that's anywhere, that
Yeah.
information.
I mean,
Charles,
there's-
it just makes sense. If there's
No, but that's
fewer
anywhere.
children, you can
Google
definitely
it.
give them
Yeah.
much more attention, you know. So,
Okay,
you
so
know,
on.
it would have to.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
I'll find that.
So this is the elementary enrollment for the 3 schools this year and projected for next year. The first number is the number of sections. The second is the number of students. You can see there's a couple of asterisks there with where there's some data that we're not sure of yet, depending on enrollment, and things are not quite set yet. We always have last minute enrollments, so that gives you a sense of where we are. And this is our elementary staffing as of last week. 49 classroom teachers, 8.5 reading teachers. I won't read them all, but you can see the staffing. Related services, there's a note there, includes guidance, nurses, social workers, psychologists, etc.
How
That's
do
where
we
we are.
have, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Are teachers 1.6, is that because we share with high
That's
school
because
people?
we have a high school teacher that works part-time at the middle school, at the elementary
And
school.
library media, 1.4?
That's because we have
One person.
3 librarians shared amongst 5 schools. So,
Okay.
How
right?
do we have 5 teachers, 5 music teachers? Is there,
And some buildings have all 5 of them,
Yeah.
all at the same
That's what we
time.
have.
we have 5 full-time music teachers just at the elementary school?
Yes, because we have the way they're scheduled. They're broken up by what they do. They're not. It's not like any one teacher does chorus, band, orchestra. You know, everything. They specialize.
Do they see the same amount of kids?
No.
No, because the school, you know, the enrollment
what
is so
they do.
different in each school.
We have so many teachers. You have one
They
teacher
teach the
that
same number
basically
of
is
classes,
band,
though, I imagine.
one teacher that teaches strings, and then they have a certain amount of people that teach general music. But
Related
because of
services manager would be
schedules,
what?
Nurses, guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, speech and language, OT, PT, behavior specialists, certified occupant, what's the code?
Certified occupational
Occupational
therapist
therapy.
assistant.
Yeah.
And does this include the teachers and the services for the ABC classes as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No?
No.
That's in here.
Those would be in the
PBS
special,
budget.
Yours.
that'd be in the.
That'd be directly in yours. I separate that.
But is
I don't know what data they took, but if they took data from 2110, it's not. If they also took data from 2250, then it is.
This is not from
Yeah.
budget. This
Right,
is
it's
from
just account.
this is from staffing.
So there may be overlap.
So yeah,
Okay.
this ABC is in
That's-
there.
All right, thank you.
Sometimes with code, it's just the
Yeah.
actual number.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
How come there's 4 phys ed teachers for 3 elementary schools?
They have 2 classes a week.
That's they move around some of them, so that's what's needed to cover.
So
Isn't
maybe
the-
1.5 in
Yeah.
one school and
Yeah.
1.2 in it. It's not necessarily a pure 1.0
Right.
in each building, which
Right.
would mean 3.
It's the same as the music. They don't, there's people that do 0.7 in one, 0.3 in another building to shift the
It's
spread
just
the load.
Gym is twice a week, and,
Yeah.
and music is very, some are
Music is
like
twice a
music
week.
and others, exactly, and some
Music
are
is twice a
instrumental,
week.
so that.
So how many
then
music
there's-
teachers do we have? How many elementary music teachers are there? And how many phys ed elementary teachers are there?
5 and 4.
We just said there weren't 4. We just said because one's 1 point.
No, he's saying there's 4,
There's-
so
amongst the
it's
3 schools, there's
So there are
that's-
4 human
yeah.
beings who are,
Yeah.
and there are,
because there's so
Because-
many classes
right.
and they have to teach
There's
these
so many
kids, and they
kids.
have it twice a week.
It is a very rich department. The music department is very rich, and we have a lot of students who participate, and then
But again, and it's broad, I mean, there's
Broad,
the
exactly.
orchestra, and there's strings, and there's band, and then there's music classes and such,
and the
so
chorus.
it's.
ABC has part of it.
ABC does have part of PE, but it could be adaptive so that it's what they are taking
Yes,
one or
yeah.
two sections and it's just them and participating in the class, or they could be mainstreamed out depending on their.
But again,
one
so
of
these
the
four
PE
teachers will be
teachers.
teaching that.
Yes, could do adaptive, both at Frank G. Lindsay and also the middle school.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So middle school enrollment numbers for 15, 16, and going through. And again, you know, as the further you get out, things change. So the less reliable the data becomes. But I think next year is pretty reliable.
This is going up in middle school.
Middle school staffing, same format as the elementary staffing, teachers, reading teachers, special ed, etc.
Where are there 0 reading teachers in middle
We
school?
don't have reading teachers.
We don't have reading teachers.
No?
Well, that's where the language, the English teachers and the language arts and stuff, they have like,
The ELA teachers do take they call back their kids, but we don't have certified reading teachers of those.
Most middle schools do.
I think it depends.
Yeah, a lot, I mean, some do.
okay.
So high school enrollment, again, same format this year, 804, projected for next year is 829, and then a little bit up and down the 3 years after that. And high school staffing.
The high school has reading teachers, so,
Point two.
yeah, but
Part of it's the EL.
Yes. It actually is the ENL teacher who is dual certified, so
Who's
she's
dual
Wilson
certified.
trained.
And there are some students within special education that receive reading, specialized reading instruction by that person.
Through the Wilson program.
It's not Wilson, but it's
That's the .8 ENL.
Right.
Is the other part of the .2 reading.
Okay. So we have fewer music teachers at the high school than we do at the
I'm
elementary.
saying the same thing to Mary Pat, the same with the phys ed, I mean,
But the music teachers, that makes sense. If the music teacher, you've got kids who are taking engineering instead of music, or they're taking, they're not necessarily, that's when every kid takes music at the elementary level. Not every kid takes it at the high school level.
Right, there's a lot of attrition.
Yep, and the gym teacher, and then the PE teachers, you have varsity exemptions, so there's,
well, you have 2 periods a week of music, you have 2 periods a week of gym.
but that's all at the elementary, that doesn't
And you
exist.
have a certain rotation,
Yep.
I think, of library, the way I understand it.
Mhm.
But that's what is a kink in the whole scheduling for elementary.
The other thing is when you have shared teachers, you lose to travel. You lose some efficiency, so
Yep,
a 1.0 is not really a 1.0 because they're
it might be a 0.8, because it's
traveling
moving around.
every day. So at the elementary school, we have those people that are shared. You really don't get the full 1.0.
But I do want to comment on this. It's so nice to have the data so we can look at it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful presentation, that's for sure.
Okay, so now we get to sort of the nitty-gritty. These are some program enhancements that you have elected to move forward with this school year, but also would roll over into the budget next year. So the expanded high school alternative program to 9th grade. I think you're up, Margaret.
The expanded high school,
Yeah.
thank you. Creating the team approach to support the 8th to 9th transition. We've talked about that a few times, I think, when Jim presented, even a little bit when Lynn presented. Establishing smaller class sizes in core subject areas. So those are some of the things that we're focused on this year that will continue into the coming school year. Social work services at the high school, so providing increased social and emotional supports to students, reducing existing caseloads so that we can strengthen those relationships. Then at the elementary level, we added some increased increased support for struggling learners. We've actually done some interesting PD and brought in some interesting materials to implement the literacy work that gets done with reading teachers and ENL teachers. Yeah.
Is there any tracking that we do of children who are in the reading support program? Because do we know how many children are actually effectively learning in these programs that we currently have? Is there any way that we could,
Data, how
test
they transition
data?
in and out.
We
and stuff.
absolutely
do they
should be doing
transition
that.
in and
I don't
out?
know that we've been doing it very effectively, or let's say that that kind of look at the work might have been different from one school to the next. And part of what Matthew talked about earlier with DataViz and the Infinite Campus abilities will allow us to look at it with a common lens from the district level. So we're moving more in that direction of saying, reading should not be a lifelong placement.
Right, it's
Right.
like a sentence.
Right, it shouldn't be someplace I put you for 6 years until you go on to Blue Mountain. We should look at, okay, if I need reading support, am I getting it, and is that support moving me back into the classroom? And if it's not, then what do we do about that? And that's,
Well, right, and I think we should be looking at that, because it seems like we're adding extra personnel, extra programs, when we really don't know, is this the best way for us to be spending our money, when we don't know what we have is actually effective.
Right.
So, to me, that doesn't make sense. To me, we should be looking at the data before we add this extra support. I understand why, being a teacher, I understand why you would want to do that. But to me, if what we currently have in place is not really working as efficiently as it could be, then I have a problem with that.
I also believe that the work we're doing with the elementary teachers who have been amazing on curriculum mapping
Right.
and our beginning work with ELA will tighten up the need for kids who are stepping out for extra support. So I think that we'll end up strengthening core instruction in a way that will lessen the need for the additional help. So we're hoping it's two-pronged, if you will.
Good. Well, that would be very beneficial. Yes. Thank you.
And I hate to promise technology things, but because I know it gets me in trouble. But I think both of your questions over the next 12 months, we would be able
Will
to
be answered.
answer using data tools.
Okay. Well, that will make me very happy
Yeah.
because I just worry about spending our money when we actually, like
getting
adding
anything
more
for it.
and not getting any
Absolutely.
return for it. Is it actually benefiting our students? I think that that's primary. And I think both of you certainly, that's what you hope to have established as well.
And that is the premise of RTI, to figure out,
Absolutely.
diagnose the problem, and then address it, and then in short bursts to say, is this working? If it's not, then we need to try something else. There are many ways
Right.
to get at some of the deficiencies.
And what I'm saying is, I know when I was trained in RTI, you want to, if, you're not making
Mhm.
the right progress with the tier 3 children, or if they're making progress, start looking at tier 2.
That's right.
And what we can start implementing. And I know, I don't have to tell you that because you're certainly, an expert in that field, but it just worries me, that we don't even know
No.
what kind of progress our present students are making, so.
We've had the same conversation, and we're moving
I'm
ourselves in that
sure.
direction. And the last thing here, and it's not last but not least, if I could say, is I would say that in many, many places, the reading teachers are the last group of people we give professional development to. It was not an intention to leave them out. We just don't think about them as
they're
we
the
should.
ones that
And this
need it.
year they've had a significant amount of PD and have
Right.
enjoyed having that focus and sharpening their tools and adding to their toolbox. So that has been important. So now we're moving to proposals for the coming school year. And my presentation is backwards from this one. So we're going to look at, as someone said earlier, there is a committee in the district looking at horizons, or I'd rather say K-5 enrichment opportunities. So there is a proposal in front of you this evening for a 1.0 FTE to expand the, we have one 1.0 right now. Many of you know Blair, who is teaching across the 3 schools. with that Belair has so richly led the past few years, and we would hope to expand. And then enrichment clusters that are open to all students in the school based on interest. And in our last conversation, and we, of course, we'll bring it before the board when we moved along in the conversation as a group, the ability to add to that staffing would be, I think, a tremendous asset for them. Not just the gifted and talented population, but also the ability to look at what enrichment clusters could do for all students, keeping that kind of growth mindset in mind, if you would.
What was the name of the program?
School-wide enrichment.
No.
Renzulli.
Joseph Renzulli is a professor out of UConn who is world-renowned for his work in gifted and talented.
Thank you.
All right, so our next proposal is an increase in the elementary library program staff. And so we are looking to restore, I guess, the original reduction from 2012. I could sit here and talk to you for a very long time about the significance of library support in light of the Common Core, not just in ELA, but primarily. The focus on research and literacy in general across the content area is tremendous. And just today, while I was mapping with the third grade teachers, we spoke for an extended period of time about the need to collaborate with our librarians in a research unit that we were writing today.
I would just like to say, I think it's a shame. I was very spoiled when I taught that we had a full-time library program in our building, which I hate to say because I have a former librarian that I work with sitting in the audience who was so beneficial in interacting with my class, collaborating, and I think it was a wonderful experience for children to be able to go to the library. I think if you look at the New York State curriculum, and the core curriculum mentions librarians as part of literacy. So I think if we're going to say where we want a literacy enriched environment in our schools, I think not having library there is detrimental. That's the only way that I can say it. I feel very strongly about having library. I know some people feel that, they don't really understand what librarians do, but I think if you have a good librarian who is a resource to both children and staff members, you have an enriched school. I think research skills have suffered. I've heard from middle school teachers, I've heard from high school teachers who are all saying that our children are not coming in with the same research skills that they originally had. And to tell you the truth, I have to say, I had a parent call me, she was laughing, she just wanted me to hear this little story about a little boy who wanted to give his teachers Christmas presents. And she said, well, who do you want to give it to? And he said, I want to give my teacher, I want to give the art teacher, I want to give the music teacher. And he said, and I had a teacher in the library, and I don't know where she is now. She's gone. And Mother said, what are you talking about? And she couldn't figure out what he was talking about. But he was so upset. He wanted to be able to find the teacher and give her a gift, but she was gone. So I think it's sad because I think it's a nice experience for children to have. And I don't know, financially if we could do this, but I certainly think if we're thinking about putting in more reading personnel where we don't even know if our reading program is working, I think to restore as much of the library program as you can would just be beneficial to all children. So that's my piece.
And I think there's one more proposal here, which relates a little bit to something we spoke about a few minutes ago, increasing the opportunity for after-school tutoring, enrichment, extensions, mentoring, and academic support. Participation would be based on performance and the needs of our students. And the proposal here is really for transportation support. So what we do know is that we can build all the wonderful programs
We don't know yet whether it would be one school or all schools. Would the kids be at
Be all
each school
I believe
or come to one
that it
school?
was the superintendent's intention that it would be school-based.
School-based program.
Right.
Because
So they would
transporting them
address
to
that.
these events would just truly
Right, would
double.
add to it, yes.
Yeah.
And you'd have less time to
Right,
be working with
exactly.
children if you were,
Plus, you also
taking
have
them to one
teachers who you're working with those
particular school.
students, so you know the needs of those students. It's much more easy for you to design powerful instruction rather than having them go to someone who doesn't really know who they are as a learner. So,
So it would be for each school though. Yes.
Is there any thought for the middle school, or is that a future dream, or is that something that's in?
well, they have lots of opportunities in the middle school already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have a lot of clubs and things. Do they have tutoring?
They actually
They have after-school.
After-school
After
work.
school help.
Yeah.
Teachers
Yeah.
provide, I think at both, usually at secondary, there's a day or so that teachers give for extra help in their content area.
A lot of times just before tests.
Right, no, right,
Yeah.
I understand, but it's not, it depends on.
No, it isn't only that.
I think a lot of the after-school programs at the middle school would be co-curriculars.
Right,
That sort of,
exactly, yeah.
that's the.
Right, but I think that the kids do have an opportunity
No,
because
they
of
have the
bus
class.
to stay after.
They have the,
Right.
they have the
They also have that supplement period during the day where they need extra help. They can go to the middle school.
So, some proposals at the secondary level, expanding the high school academy program, and this looks like that. Increasing the staffing, I believe this is the humanities course, where the teacher is sitting in two separate positions, and this would allow us to continue to support both 9 and 12, and bring that person, I believe, to a 1.0, am I right, Matt?
I don't understand why that
The
would not
person is
change.
0.6 teacher, 0.4
Because she's
teaching
already
assistant
working,
now.
just move her.
So it would
So
essentially be
you pay the
moving.
same a teaching assistant than a teacher?
Yeah, I would have thought there would be a cost
Yeah.
differential.
That's what it is now.
You pay the same.
No.
Then why is it increased 0.40?
I think the difference is negligible.
It's not net. It's more than $20,000. We discussed that last month.
Yeah, I
She
thought there
said
was.
you already had this money in the budget.
I-
But it
I
doesn't
just-
mean it's zero, though.
Correct, I
It
think
doesn't
It's
there's,
not,
Zero.
it's not zero.
I don't, any increase I would imagine there needs to be. So, there, I mean, it has to cost something.
No, but in finance, we said,
No, there was a number assigned.
There was a number signed, but you said you already had it in the budget, so it's.
But whether it's in the budget
Yeah.
or not, it's still.
Yeah, but it's
I
not
know we
zero,
have it in the
that's-
budget, that doesn't mean that the increase is zero. I had to increase the budget 20,000, not zero, to get that 0.4.
So it's not a wash, okay.
No. It's costing $20,000.
Okay, so. Okay, thank you.
And then the next proposal is the increase in ENL staffing, and this really is to meet the New York State mandates as Part 154 has shifted. Hugely impactful at the secondary level because children require both standalone language acquisition classes and content tuition. So it kind of, in a way, almost doubled the amount of time that folks like Maria at the high school, I'll use her as an example, is trying to support students who are in different content classes. They all come to her for the language acquisition piece, but then she has to make her way to their content classes to provide that support, and that can sometimes be a very interesting schedule to create. And the same situation happens at Blue Mountain, so we did a good job of meeting that need this school year, but we know our numbers are increasing. That's the fastest growing segment of pretty much every district's population. And there will be a large group of students moving from Blue Mountain to the high school next year, where she doesn't necessarily let go of that many kids, so we have to be prepared to help her address those needs. Those are students who are up against graduation, as you know. So we'll see where that sits. And
When you talk about the 1.0 and potentially 1.5, are you talking about that being distributed over the middle school and the high school, or simply the high school?
or potentially spreading it down to the elementaries. We don't.
So this may be, so the 1.5 may be like K to 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. If you, I'll show you
But you anticipate a minimum of at least one
A
at the
minimum of one. And
at
you
the high
can see
school.
right here, let's see if I can, no, I don't have it. He has the pointer. If you look at the K-5 16-17 projection, it's 20, and last year we had 7 this past year, and they are not quite finished yet. So there will be more kids coming in. That's just based on what we know at the moment of the registration process. And again, I think we were surprised this year. There has been a fairly steady influx of Ls to the district at all levels. Maria has seen quite a few new students in the past few weeks. Ernest Woods has accepted quite a few new students since the start of the school year. And kids obviously come to us with all levels of proficiency, so we have to be prepared to meet that need and move them forward. So 1.0 is a definite, and we'll see how many of our children we can count on to pass an ISASLAT, which means they move out of service, but we won't know that until the summer. Scores don't come back until almost August. So it's a little bit, unfortunately, of a guessing game with do we need 1.5 or will we be safe with 1.0? Some conversations that we'll have with Lynn and the secondary school counselors and the principals about careful placement so that we can minimize the number of content sections that the secondary ENL teachers have to push into. So if we cluster them appropriately, it's easier to address the content need. But it's never as perfect as elementary when we own them for the whole day. There are hours it's easier to push in and out of those classes. So it clearly is a challenge, and the state has been very patient with the districts trying to ramp up to this across the board. So
Actually, there's we're on it.
less.
Onward, which is the New York State School Boards Association's paper. Had a story on that today that NISBA and other education groups have advocated for $75 million state aid funding level to be put into created for ENL services, because they're saying that those services, this is an example of an unfunded mandate by regulation. In other words, they've said you have to meet these things, and they haven't provided any money for it. So people are advocating for it. I don't know how likely it is that we'll get that state aid stream, but at least people are aware of what extra it is costing going out and doing it. So
It wasn't even just funding, although that's clearly a big piece of it. Many districts, not ours, but many districts who had to meet the bilingual need. So there's part of the new regulation is if you have X amount of students who speak the same native language at a grade, you must have a bilingual program in place. And as it turns out, there weren't enough bilingual certified teachers in New York State to meet the need, especially at the Big 5 districts, to address that. So I think they're trying to do all the right things for this particular group of students, absolutely. I just think that having it happen now, here's the rule and do it now, sometimes gets a little tricky, and it certainly did, I think, for everybody.
now,
As I said,
is it the same? Is it a difficult hiring for ENL teachers? Will we have a hard time finding someone?
they're hard to find because now they're in such demand. Most districts had to hire more, and so it is very challenging to find people. And a lot of ENL certified teachers are going back for their bilingual extension so that they can address both. The colleges have been pushing certification for that. So.
Thank you.
So the next couple of slides is the sort of the summary of some of the choices before you. This is where we are as of today with confirmed retirements. 7 HHEA members have officially retired, and the estimated savings from that, assuming they're all replaced, is $482,000. Just in looking at all those positions, it would be a stretch to say that any of those could not be replaced. I mean, it's certainly the board's decision, but that's what our thinking at the district level. And then this is the overview of those four options that Dr. Roller presented to you, the ENL position and the library media specialist, those would be a new 1.0 hire, which we estimated about $83,000. The 0.4 FTE teacher, which will correct this to be $20,000, and the Horizons is also $83,000. So the total for all four of those would be $269,000, which is under the 482. So just to wrap up, so you have some choices, obviously, of possibility to restore some programs and still maintain savings, and obviously think about which programs are going to have the greatest impact on learning and students, and look at increasing programs, or obviously just capturing the savings for fund balance.
Or a combination of.
Or a combination. And then also, of course, thinking about the year after and the year after once these things become part of the budget.
That's true.
That's the overview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You give us a lot to think about. Carol, did anybody like to?
I can start.
Maren?
First of all, I applaud all the work, and I think the priorities are right on, so thank you very much. It's a really delight to be here and to know we can restore the enrichment position that was really hard to lose, and I think the plans are really great for it. It's really great to, of course, we all need elementary librarians, everybody. That's just a no-brainer. We should never, it's too bad we had to cut that. So the only question I had, I just like to see the whole piece of the whole budget together, because we're looking at now what we're adding and thinking back. So just the whole, what is the amount of instructional budget? I know it's 80% of our budget, so really, I always like to see the pie chart. It's very
I agree, and
yeah.
the other piece of it, you want to make sure it's sustainable.
Exactly.
I don't want it. I need to know that this is something where if we put this, for example, the Horizons teacher in, that we can, we're not taking that person back next year, or the library media specialist. That we're saying, okay, I don't want this, a one and done or even two. I'd like this to be, ongoing. I think I'm sorry, Carol.
Before you continue, this Friday the board will get the whole budget book, so you will have the whole
The ability
picture.
to look at this. Perfect.
Okay, and it is about 80% of our budget.
80.1.
80.1, yes, because this is what we spend most of our money on, obviously, so it's about $450 million. But we're really looking at a small piece here, what we're cutting and adding, but it's important, but we need to look at the whole.
But again, you want to look at the long term.
Yeah.
Obviously, I missed most of the earlier discussion, but I'd just like to echo, I think it's great that we can actually look at restoring some of these positions. They're critical positions for all of our students. So it's nice that these are even on the table after so many years of having to cut and save and just try to barely maintain what we already had. It's really nice to be able to look at some areas where we might be able to put some services back again.
Charles?
Carol and Marion's thoughts. I think we also have to be aware of elementary enrollment with the splits that are possible in 2 or 3 classes going forward. When we went through the elementary enrollment, there's a possibility that we may have to split, and at least 2 of those are in, 3 of them are in ICT classes. So if the split happens at that, it could be 2 teachers. So we kind of have to be cognizant of where we are. On the other hand, as a child whose greatest joy in the week of school is going to the library once a week and getting a handful of books, I'd love to have a library. That was always my fun day of the week, to go get those books. And I think being able to integrate the librarians into the curriculum, collaborate with the teachers is an important thing to do. I think they're on short leashes now that they can't really do what they're
I just want to remind the board, so you remember, we are also adding a social worker that we started, it's starting any day. I don't know where we are there, but it was not for this budget, and it's being added for next year budget. We are adding one special ed teacher for the ABC program, 2 teaching assistants, and 3 security people. So it's not like we are the same as this year. We are already adding 8 positions for next year. So we are already much better off than what we are today.
Those positions, just for clarity, those positions, this, I don't know how to put this, but this money that we have is after we have paid for or allocated for these additional 8 spots, correct? I mean, yes, we have an expanded, staff with all of these other spots, but we have this money does not, the savings from the retirements that we're talking about here, these proposals, these are, the money that we're talking about that has been saved is available for these. I mean, that money is not necessarily needed for these other 8 spots, correct? Those are already,
Yes, those are already there.
Okay.
So the question is, again, if we go to the next slide, I already took into account since last Monday when we discussed finance, the E&L position, because that's not an option.
It's required, yep.
That's required. I already took into account the other point 4. So we still have some money, but let me remind you that we're moving forward 1,580,000 in fund balance. On the other hand, a portion is because we knew that we were going to have to make a big payment.
Correct.
But that's only 600. We take out that 600 and we're talking that we're moving $1 million that every year gets more and more difficult because our budgets are very tight. So my recommendation would be we already have the E&L to pick one of the rest.
Well,
Because my feeling is that we don't know, the market is not doing that well, it didn't do well last year, so now we're going to get into this 5-year average where TRS might stay flat or might again go up. If that happens, these positions will have to be cut, and we don't want.
No, I think that's been understood, that what we're looking at is that it needs to be sustainable and that it needs, the benefits. I don't think we're making the decision right now. I think, what we're going to, this is more an awareness and that we have these options available. And I think if we're going to get the budget book this weekend, it gives us an opportunity to look at these numbers, and I appreciate your conservative approach to, if necessary, to perhaps allocate, distribute some to fund balance and some to just choose one. I understand that, or maybe some combination. Again, there's always adjustments. This is it's fluid, but I think a big piece is once we get that budget book, and I think we can look at how the pieces all do fit together, as Marion suggested. I think that will be helpful, and we can go back. We're not making the decision that's we're not hiring these people tomorrow or whatever. This is just for discussion at this point. But thank you.
And again, you'll have through June to make the decision because we know that the money is there.
Correct. Well, and
So
again,
the question is going to be what part of this money you want me to add to the budget, and what part.
and where to add it,
basically-
whether it's an expense,
It doesn't matter where, because
well,
then
whether
I'll
you're
move
saying it's
it.
fund balance or whether it's going to be
Exactly.
correct.
So then you have until June, July, until it's time to hire, to say, okay, this is what the board decided. We want this position rather than the other one, but the money's there, the allocation of funds are there.
All right, well, I think that it's, again, I think the fact that we're going to get this budget book this weekend is a big piece of it, so that we will be able to see that. And also, and as Charles pointed out, there's going to be classes that may split, so there may be some of those funds need to be allocated there.
What
So,
was the,
Last year when we were talking about the math specialists, we made the decision that we were going to add them, but with the stipulation that if classes split,
we'd start losing them.
yes.
Right.
No, I understand that, but you can't really do that with
a
a,
specialist and then have them teaching, coaching
part-time or
class.
something.
Right.
That's, no, I think
Well,
that's.
if you do have a 1.4 person now, you could maybe, if you can't afford 1.0, there's a way of,
Again, that's what we were saying, that
That's
you
what
could,
you have to work
we can
out.
mix and match a little bit.
but I
So-
definitely,
And some of these are required, like the ENL is not, it's not optional.
right.
And to a certain extent, the academy teacher.
No, and the academy
Right.
has to.
And I think I think it's important to listen to what the principals and the administration say
And that's
about
what
what
I
the
was
need
just
is
gonna
as well.
say. Yes.
Because they've got you guys have a sense of what's needed
And the community as well.
Absolutely,
The community
I apologize.
should
Yes.
definitely have
weigh in.
strong input.
So, but Barbara, do you any thoughts beyond?
I think I've been talking all the way through.
We appreciate that. Well, thank you very much. We will be looking at this further. This is just, it's nice to be have options rather to have these as a potential addition as opposed to a subtraction, which is a nice change of pace after the past, I don't know, however many years.
And I would just like to say thank you to Margaret and to Matthew for an outstanding presentation.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, I'm sorry, are there any, that brings us to our audience comments. Then it would be board comments, new business. There is for those of you who have some thoughts that they'd like to share, please come to the board, either send an email or speak to somebody or come to the Dunkin' Donuts meet and greet, which we will be having this Saturday at 8:30 to 10 a.m. At Dunkin' Donuts across the way.
Will be there?
I do not know. I have to look. We're going to surprise y'all. Joe will be there.
Hopefully.
He's feeling better.
Please, let's hope so, for his sake. He's not going to want to look at donuts otherwise.
Well, then Margaret.
But we will be having the meet and greet this Saturday. So please, if you have concerns or even if you have sugar,
Or you
need
want to
some
just
sugar,
say
you're
hello
ready.
to all of
Exactly.
us.
Please feel free to stop by. It'll be 8:30 to 10 o'clock. Our next meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight on March 23rd. 22nd. Tonight's.
It's a Tuesday.
Oh, thank you. That's why we keep Roseanne here.
oh, it's the BOCES road.
March, it will be Tuesday, 2 weeks from yesterday, on March 22nd, here at the high school. And again, please attend. And if there are any questions or you have any suggestions regarding the proposals that were presented, please, we would welcome your input. Can I get a motion to close?
Certainly.
Can I second? All in favor? Aye.